audio edition just for today. I'm here with a special guest, a good friend of mine. He is a former six-time WWF Intercall champion, former TNA champion and founder of TNA, and he's the president of GWF. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Double J Jeff Jarrett.
I appreciate you having me on, Keith. Good to hear your voice, and looking forward to some talking to Global Force Wrestling and pro wrestling in general.
Now, before we jump into the wrestling, I don't want people to think this is just a wrestling conversation. I want to know who is the real Double J. So I'm going to ask you some hard-hitting questions, and you can ask me anything you want. It's normal conversations, uncensored. So starting off, what can you tell us? Who is the real Double J? You know, what was your life growing up?
Well, I mean, I've pretty much been in the public light. You know, my dad and my family's in the professional wrestling business since the 1940s. So my grandmother wrestled and promoted, and my dad, you know, it's a family business. And so I've been around wrestling my entire life. You know, growing up, I was really big into sports, and basketball was my favorite. But, you know, as I got into my high school years, and I actually played 1 year of college basketball, but, you know, wrestling's always been my passion, and I've always been around the fans. And for lack of a better term, the wrestling fans have put groceries on the Jarrett's table for many, many years, and so I'm very respectful. And I myself is an enormous wrestling fan. So, you know, throughout my career, I've been Double J. You've referenced that a couple of times. The King of the Mountain. As a young guy starting out in Texas and Tennessee, I wrestled. So the real Jeff Jarrett is a professional wrestler.
Now, when you first got this gimmick, going back to the WWF days, when you say it's Double J, Double E, Double R, Double T, ha ha ha, ain't I great? Did you think that was more obnoxious at the time, or do you think it was something eventually wrestling fans would remember you for? You
know, Double J, as you refer to him, is a character. But that was a real character. I was a young kid from Music City, USA, who absolutely loved country music, and we put our professional wrestling spin on it. And I was taking over the music business and taking over the wrestling business, and was very successful, in my opinion, during that time. I think you noted it, 6 or 7 time Intercontinental Champion, and very proud of the series of matches that I had with Shawn Michaels and Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash, and several others. But did I think it was obnoxious? Absolutely. Did I think people remembered? That's the original reason I said it. I do have a unique name with consonants and you know, a vowel and 2 consonants, and just how it spells out. It really resonated with the fans, and to this day, Keith, you're still talking about it. So I did something right.
Now, the other question I was going to ask you, I'm going to ask you a lot of hard-hitting questions. But sorry about that. I'm going to ask you a lot of hard-hitting questions, and you can ask me anything. But the first one is, a lot of people speculate why you left the WWE. And one of the stories was because of what happened to you in China. You were the Intercall champion, and you were, I guess, at the end of your contract, but there was a pay-per-view coming up. And Mr. McMahon didn't want you to go on WCW with the Intercall Championship. What was the whole thing behind that? That was one story. And the second one, and if this one's not too personal, I apologize, but it's uncensored. And you can call me an asshole for bringing it up. I was going to say, the other story was everything what happened with Owen Hart. It had a big influence, a big impact on your life, and you just didn't want anything to deal with the company anymore. Or which one of those stories were true, and which ones are just full of shit?
Well, Keith, you want me to call you an a-hole? It's not going to happen. I thought we were buddies, but neither one of them are true. You know, on the Intercontinental title situation. It was real simple. It was a business deal. My contract, you're right, had expired. So we both had 2 options. My 2 options were I could wrestle and get paid, or I didn't have to wrestle and I could have left. Vince McMahon, the promoter and owner, he could have told me, nope, don't come in my building, or yep, come in my building and wrestle and I'll pay you. It was that simple. There's a lot of drama and a lot of backstory that people like to embellish and, quite frankly, conjure up because it makes for a good talk. But it's that simple. We both had business decisions to make, and we made them. And then the situation with Owen, that's completely fabricated. And I'll be honest, Keith, you're the first one who's ever in my entire life since Owen's passing has brought up that type of a ridiculous statement. But, you know, I understand, Keith, and no hard feelings, but no, Owen was a great man, had more integrity in one finger than most people have in their entire body, but great guy, one of my really, really good friends, and, you know, miss him to this day.
Well, on the subject, I'm looking forward to building a friendship with you, and I hope I can say the same thing about you one day.
You got it, buddy. You got it.
Now, the next question is, well, on the subject, what killed professional wrestling? And there's two stories I want to mention to you. First one is ECW. And, you know, I like I said, it's uncensored, and I fucking hate ECW with a passion. I swear to God, I hate it. It was the most stupidest federation ever. I hate ECW. And I apologize if I use the F word, you know, it offends you and anyone else. But that's, again, very passionate about wrestling. ECW wasn't wrestling. It was basically garbage wrestling. And when WWF and WCW copied ECW, the whole stupid attitude era, that's when wrestling basically died. Because, you know, you look at when Hogan, Hole and Ass made the NWO, that was good. Then he had the Hart Foundation representing WWF, that was good. But then he had Austin coming out with, you know, ass this, ass that, and it's, you know, the icing on the cake, well, going back to one of my heroes, Owen Hart, was the icing on the cake is when I had enough of wrestling. It's when Owen passed away. And it's like, do you think ECW hurt the wrestling business? From my first statement.
Absolutely not. You're all over the place today, Keith, but absolutely not. He, and when I say he, Paul Heyman, worked down in Memphis, and he saw a lot of what was going on down here. And, you know, we were doing hardcore matches, and there was hardcore matches all over the country, moondog matches, bunkhouse matches, whatever you want to call it. But Paul is a brilliant marketer, and he took I'll say a vibe, a sense, and really created a unique roster that came together. And, you know, you're still talking about it today, and they hadn't been in business in 17, 18 years. And then WWE thought so much of the brand, they attempted to bring it back. And it's just hard in this day and age. You know, it's hard enough to have one brand, and they had Raw and SmackDown, and then they went to ECW. So, you know, you're saying professional wrestling's dead, and I'll just sort of flip it on you that today there's the WWE Network. Raw's on 3 hours on Monday, SmackDown's 2 hours, Lucha Underground is on weekly, New Japan World, New Japan Access Television, TNA has their deal with Destination America, Global Force Wrestling is coming on the scene. The hottest free agents in the world, and there's a lot of them, are available. AAA down in Mexico is setting the world's on fire. New Japan in their home country. Lots of independent promotions around the country. So, Keith, I would say professional wrestling is alive and thriving, very much so.
Well, let me just clarify. I never said it killed wrestling. I said, at the time, did it hurt wrestling? Because everyone was copying the ECW gimmick. Like, everyone was copying the hardcore gimmick. Do you think that it was good for business, or do you think it was bad for business? It's
a case-by-case basis. I mean, it goes without saying, the Attitude Era or the Monday Night Wars era or the NWO era was an enormous boom. It will never be duplicated because of the distribution models. Social media wasn't on the scenes back then. It was the internet had just started to develop as it relates, and you had TBS and TNT, which is a very, very high-profile cable network, and obviously USA is a very high-profile cable network, and so the Monday Night Wars were a unique and special time, and guys like myself that got to participate in that, it was really a cool town, going every Monday night to sell out buildings and going on the road on the live events, and you're doing record businesses all around the world. So there's my answer to that.
Right, now to one more easy question. Is a lot of people, when you relate to the Attitude Era, do you think when Owen Hart did the Blue Blazer gimmick, do you think that there was some hesitation, or do you think it was not really a smart idea, or what was your whole opinion about bringing the Blue Blazer back, and especially coming down from the ceiling? That's, I don't care if it's entertainment, no one should ever,
Keith, you're bringing a lot of negativity to the table today, and I like to remember Owen Hart very fondly. He was very entertaining as the Blue Blazer. He was very entertaining as Owen Hart the Nugget. He was very entertaining in everything he did, because the one thing he could do day in, day out, better or as good or better than anybody, is wrestle. And so Owen is a great man.
No, absolutely. Now, I apologize for bringing the negativity. Do you have any funny stories you would like to share? You and Owen were best friends. Do you have any funny stories you'd like to share?
I've been asked that quite often on interviews, and I've said this multiple times. I like to leave the funny stories because there's so many of them. I'll let other guys tell funny stories. When every opportunity I get to talk about Owen, I like to talk about the man, the family man. Both of us are sons of wrestling promoters, so we had a kindredship there, and just Owen and grew up in that big family, the Hart family, and his legendary father, and the dungeon, and everything Owen went through made him the man that he was, and I want people to remember that, and I want his kids to remember that. Because Martha and Oj and Athena, they lost their dad and their father, and so when I get an opportunity, I like to, talk about the man Owen Hart as opposed to, oh, what a funny guy he was, and he was one of the funniest practical jokers this business has ever seen.
No question. He is a Hall of Famer, and he is one of the best, and you're in that category as well. And now that brings me up to these last two easy questions. Do you think Owen Hart will ever be inducted into the Hall of Fame? And will you ever be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame?
I can answer both of those quite honestly. I have no idea, because it's one man's decision, and it's his decision alone. And so I can't speak for him, and I don't like to hypothetically talk about anything, and so I don't have a clue, and I don't think anybody else other than Vince McMahon has a clue.
Well, I know you said you didn't want to mention the negativity, so I won't mention this guy's name. But as a professional wrestler, and you may know where I'm going with this, as a professional wrestler, he is one of the greatest, but a lot of people don't want to mention him by name, but I would pass on the subject. Now, for Global Force Wrestling, how did that come about? Because I saw a video recently where you were promoting Andre the Giant. I didn't know Andre the Giant was in Global Force Wrestling.
Say that again, Keith?
Oh,
Andre the Giant is in Global Force Wrestling?
Well, wasn't that the video? I saw it on YouTube. I don't know if it was real or not. But
that was a video, and Andre's passed away, so God rest his soul. If he was in Global Force Wrestling, what a unique attraction that would be. But it was historical footage shown from New Japan Pro Wrestling that we ran the footage just to show the deep and rich heritage of New Japan, that they've had stars from Hulk Hogan to Andre the Giant to Stan Hansen to Bam Bam Bigelow, and the list goes on and on. The Steiners and Ric Flair and Sting, and just the who's who of American wrestling has wrestled in Japan.
I didn't know that. I apologize.
That's all right.
Now, how did you start, or how did this whole global force of wrestling come about?
I left TNA in December of 2013 and knew that I wanted to close the chapter of that in my life and start new. And took me a couple of months and put the pieces together, and we launched it April 7th, 2014. And then we, announced all the international partners from AAA out of Mexico, New Japan, the Europe promotion, South Africa, Australia, and then, we had Wrestle Kingdom 9 with Jim Ross and Matt Stryker, and here we are, and then the next 30 to 60 days, we're going to be really continuing and ramping up the rollout, and I couldn't be more excited. And Keith, we're almost on that 20-minute mark, so I'm going to have to let you go, but I'll let you ask a few more questions, and then we'll call it a day.
All right, now let's off the topic of wrestling, because, I don't want this to be a wrestling interview. What would you say would be your greatest accomplishments in life?
Oh, wow. I don't like to talk about greatest and this and that. I do sort of have a personal creed that I wake up every morning and say my prayers and say I want to be a positive effect on this world and not bring negativity into it. And that's who I am, whether it's in the wrestling business, whether it's I'm fathering, whether I'm being a good friend, or whether I'm a business associate. Whatever it is, I want to be a positive effect and help myself grow as well as others grow to being a better person than I was today than I was yesterday. And that's what life's really all about, personal growth.
That's true. Yesterday's history and tomorrow's a new day.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Now, wrapping up, I just have a couple questions I want to mention off the air. But wrapping up, do you have any questions you want to ask me?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm just trying to keep my day on schedule. I appreciate your time today.